Very warm welcome to everyone. A bit nervous, first time doing this thing. I believe this, to some of you, this is the very first time stepping into a print production house. Maybe you have been to bookshop, listening to book launch or some other places. But this, I believe, will be the very first for you, and actually it's really the very first time for us doing this. I mean, since we know that the bread can talk, which is down the corner, we want the book to talk also. That's why we create this event, so we have this book talk. A bit cringy, right? Bread talk, and we have this book talk. Can't think of anything better to say. So, before we start the whole program, I have to do a bit of a salesman talk. Basically, let me introduce myself. My name is Yao Liang, and that's Merlyn. Okay. We are basically the founder of this print house. We started about 24 years ago, and we have been this premise itself for the last 16 years. Okay, and then we have our guests here that we will let them introduce themselves later. Okay, so next slide, after print. So what is actually after print? You notice that this is actually presented by Pagesetters and After Print. After print is actually not a brand. Okay, it's not a brand itself. It's not an entity. After print is actually we are trying to create, because a lot of people, as you have heard a lot, that printing industry or books or print, if you want to if your friend want to start a business and you want your friend to fail, ask them to open a bookshop. Correct? That's what almost people will say. But we thought, because that's a sunset industry, but basically we want to debunk that. We don't want to say we are a sunset industry. If not, I don't have young people joining me. Okay, I'll be getting older and older. So what we are trying to create here is a sunrise industry, which is in the making. Okay, it is shaped by human hands and with our heart, not pure machine. Next slide. So amid this, we want to create a radiant sunrise. So we are happy, we are joyful today. We see a lot of warmth. It's a collective mindset of 5 brands. In this company, we started as a company called Allegro Print. But along these few years, we have created 5 brands together. And who are they? Okay. Basically, we have Allegro, which is the very first brand we have created. And in about 6 years ago, we created a new brand called Layer Play, followed by Ullers, Off-Cut, and All Books above after COVID. So you see, COVID, we created all these things. While 2 of us has nothing much to do at home, we stare at the sky, at the rooftop, play with our husky. After that, we thought, let's create something together. We can't create human because we already have 2 boys and they are too old. So we want to create something for the company. So basically, Allegro Print, we started, as I mentioned, 24 years ago. We are a commercial printer. So the usual things that we do when we first started, all the books, all the name card, brochures, and flyers. And along the way, continuously, we start to find our niche, where we start doing a lot of books printing for creative people like design books, galleries, and museums. And because of the gallery work and museums that we collaborate with when we do a lot of art books printing, they actually came to us and said, hey, Yao Liang, since you printed my book, can you do it in a much bigger format, a size of a wall mural? So we thought that's an opportunity. So we start creating a new brand called Layer Play, where we start to do customized wallpaper. Okay? Next is Ullers. Ullers, I mean, it's like, since we like paper so much and you're sitting on some of them, we thought, since we have all the papers on hand, can we create something of our own? So we created a Ullers stationery. Okay? Basically, it's our in-house stationery products that we are moving into a retail sectors. And Off-Cut, what is Off-Cut? By its name itself, Off-Cut is leftover papers. So we thought, you see, you notice all the leftover papers on the right and some on the left, and it's usually being thrown away, and we sell, or we actually sell to the recycling company. But some of these leftover papers, they are very clean, they are very nice. Because we print art books, so we use very good quality papers from Italy, from Japan, from Europe. So sometimes when we throw them away, you find it a bit simtia. So we thought, can we make full use of it? So during COVID again, staring at the sky at the rooftop, we thought, let's put some content into this leftover space. That's where Off-Cut is being created. After this show, you can have to browse around this place and you see some of the Off-Cut products. And All Books. Why All Books? It is an e-commerce platform where we actually encourage self-publishers or companies that after printing the books, they work with us. We try to create an ecosystem where we print, we help you to sell, we help you to distribute. and we help you to organize an event like this today, to give a voice to the book that you have created or you have published. Next, what do we have next? So these are some of the salesmen, some of the products we have done, Allegro. So these are some of the works, okay? Next, I hope you can see them. And we, at Allegro, we are not, okay, I always tell ourselves we are not the so-called usual printer. We are experiential. I have to be careful when I say we love challenges. If not, my production manager will start killing me. Boss, can we do something a bit simpler? But we are experiential. We don't mind trying things. We cut them, we burn them, we tear them, we kind of destroy them, and to create a nice book. Okay, next. Yeah, so we try with different techniques. Something that we are really very open to explore with the creative people. Next. This is layer play. These are some of the wallpaper that we created. So for layer play, we actually collaborate with 180 artists globally to curate a library of images for a client to choose. So we work with residentials, we work with architects, we work with interior designs, we work with corporate company. Next, this is one of the highlight. Okay, during our process of creating layer play, we did. If you happen to go, travel and on Terminal 3, Changi Airport, if you look at this, then you see, oh, now I know who made this. It is this company, Layer Play. And one of the highlight for this year, Nike. Where's my Nike? Oh, Nike. Yes. Come, welcome, please. Sit on your books or sit on any paper. This feel free. Sit on books. If you sit on books at home when you're young, your mom will still school you. But today you're free to sit on any paper. So this is one of the latest projects. If you've been to Nike flagship on Orchard, if you walked in, you see any wallpaper, all the wallpapers within Nike flagship are done by us. Okay? Azilia, next one. Thank you. And we also created, as I mentioned, we create a lot of retail products under Layer Play. These are self-service decal, DIY decal, where you can use them again and again. It's self-decorative. Next. Ullers, which I mentioned, the stationery we have created. We do envelopes. We just quickly. Next, yeah. So, and at the same time, right now, we are in the process of trying to curate stationeries from overseas, from Japan, for Europe, to put into our shop. I mean, we are just, we love papers and we love stationery. So this is off-card. These are stationery products created using leftover papers. So before they are dumped into this cage, we actually put them in good use and create stationeries. And off-card actually has won a few awards. Number one, again, COVID years, we won Good Design Singapore, and we also won Good Design Japan Award. I think we are the first in Singapore, a first company in Singapore that won in Japan. I'm proud of it. And all books. Yeah. Okay. This is what happened last year during Christmas. We printed this book called Island Code Book. It's this two island based off in Bintan. They are a very famous restaurant over there. So the owner actually created a code book, and they appointed us to print and to help them to distribute. So we're busy creating them all. And we distribute not only in Singapore, we did it as far as, I think we sent it to Iceland, Finland, anywhere in the world, USA and Australia. So we are busy doing that. And All Books' objective is not only to sell, we also encourage people to do a lot of self-publication. I think one reason why All Books is being created is also, we notice there's a pain point among all self-publishers. Number one, they self-publish, so when they go to Kinokuniya might not be so interested. So they cannot print in bulk. So a lot of them, they will print probably 300, 200 books. But if you print only 200 to 300 books, per unit of each book will be slightly higher. And with such a high cost, you have to sell higher. That makes it a bit difficult to sell. The other challenge that they have, because they can't print a lot because they have no space to put. Normally, they'll put at their own bedroom, and the mom will start scolding them. Okay, number three, they can't really distribute them because they are self-publisher. They can only sell it to their own friends. So understanding the pain point of all our friends here, we say, why don't we create this platform? We call it All Books. You print with us. We help them to keep them in store for a short period of time, about 6 months. And we have an e-commerce platform to help you to sell. That's what the Island Code Book is all about. And we also want to create a platform, like this is one event that we went to Singapore Art Book Show. So you can't go to Singapore Art Book Show with only one book of yourself. It costs $300 per table, right? Why is that $300? I need to sell a lot of books to recover that. But with all the 20s or 30s titles that we bring along, you actually don't pay for it. We help you to cover all the costs and we help you to sell. And last year, somewhere in May, Merlyn and Azealia actually went to London Book Fair. So we actually intended to bring some of the books there to sell. So this is the plan. Every time when there's a book show in Singapore or overseas, we would like to bring all these titles along with us. We also like to expose Singapore writers' work or publications to overseas, more than just remaining here in Singapore. And also to create a book talk like this, yeah? So printing, I mean, there's more than just printing. So this is about after print. So after print is what we want to think. We think quite a fair bit like, what do we do after printing? There's a lot more. It's not after print, we pass it back to the publisher like Kah Gay, and we just leave it as it is. We want to continue the life of the whole book itself. And do follow our Instagram. So this is what we have in mind when we created this after print. Like in the past, it's a past. There's nothing we can do. So at present, we want to experience, we want to learn through the entire process, the entire circle of it. Yeah? Then in future, sometimes it's beyond our control, we just leave it in future. But what we're trying to create here is to learn, to try. Once we fail, we learn and try again. Once it's succeed, we want to share with the community. So in our after print, if you follow our social media, we share a lot of things that we have gone through. The whole print industry, the whole print production line. We also share information that we learn from overseas, from Europe, from Japan, from Korea, the best practices that they have. And I mean, in future, if possible, we also want to create a workshop where writers, creative people can come together and we share the best knowledge that we have. Yeah. So after print, we talk about sunrise, right? This is the sun, and this is the rise. So we are in this sunrise industry now, no longer sunset. If people say printing of books is sunset, say go and talk to Allegro Print. You will make sure the sun will rise one day. Okay. No more, right? That's the last one. So without further ado, I'd like to pass the time over to Kah Gay, Pagesetter.
Yeah,
yes.
Thanks so much, Yao Liang, and
thank you.
And to all of you who are here today. I think it's very important to set the context for today, why we're in a printing house. And for Yao Liang and Merlyn to be here, they are bringing to you the smell of the industry. Hey, actually smell is the most, I feel, activating for memory. And you usually are very used to sanitize places, but a printing smell is very unique. Remember this smell. Yeah. We are here with invested people. What are you invested in? We are all invested in books. I think if you are not here for books, right, it's maybe because you are interested also in the craft of making things. So I want to set this context. So what are the two things we can talk about today? We will talk about today. It's about craft. And with craft, you also need to have appreciation. So that's why knowledge sharing is important. We push each other. The literary scene in Singapore, one of the problems with the literary scene is we don't have enough critics. We have amazing writers. We need amazing critics. With appreciation, you push the craft people, the artists, and then you really go to the next level. I'm very happy to be here with 4 other crafts people, because Manuel is a co-author of Pink Chilli, which is this book. Later we'll talk about it. It's an example of a book that is really focusing on craft. Yeah, it's not easy to make this book. And one of the main contributing writer, Stephanie, right? They have a lot of other activities. I have their bio, but let's know them as the co-author, the main contributing writer. I'm the publisher who came late into the game. I'll tell you a bit about that. And the printers. But we do a tour in reverse today. We go from print to concept. Okay? Why? Because I feel that this actually gets you into the making of the book that then go right back to the thinking behind the book. So I think the first thing is, another thing besides craft, right? I really want us to think about business, not in the profit way, but in the purpose way. Because you can see Yao Liang is like, oh, sunrise. I actually felt my heart rising with that. Yeah, because it's, you know why we are in this, right? It's not because it's easy money. This is not easy money. We are resourcing for a purpose that we want to keep going. Actually, print can be sunset. Because AI and online electronics can take over our world any day. But we don't want that. So we are going to keep going and make books that we love. So for the first part of this conversation, right, it will be Merlyn telling us the challenges about this book, the making of this book, because this book is not easy to make. Then I'm going to talk about the publishing side, how it's very different from the usual, because as I told you, I came late into the game. Thinking, what's a publisher when he is not the first person to initiate? But there are different models of making books in the world today, and we need to be flexible. So I think a few of our friends who came from Seng Station, they were just talking about zine making, paper jamming. How do you work with concepts in new ways, right? Then after that, we'll go into the design, which Manuel can tell us about as well. And we go into the writing, and then back to Manuel, because that's the origin of the book. Yeah, so maybe, first of all, right, Merlyn, you have prepared some slides to show us the technicalities involved in making this book called Pink Chilli in a Bowl. Yes, some of you have already been thinking, what is a pink chili? Okay, don't worry, we can talk about that later. Maybe Merlyn first, over to you. Yeah.
Okay, I think in the book production, it can get very, very technical. So if you're not in design, so sometimes it might be a bit difficult. So I'm going to briefly run through what are the challenges we face as a printer. But if you want to know in depth into how is a book formed, why is it that way, then we can actually discuss it later. Okay, when I received the first specification from Kah Gay, he was the one who sent me the specification. And when I see the specification, I know it's going to be a very challenging book. Because later I'll encourage you to purchase the book, because this book has very uniquely 3 different types of paper used. So it's an uncoated paper, and then there's a bleached craft paper, and that's a very unique paper, because the paper is actually one side coated, one side uncoated. And then the last paper is a coated paper. So it's 3 different types of paper, and the designer is very specific as to what content go onto what paper. So that makes the book even more difficult. So when I was discussing with Kah Gay, because it gets too technical, I have to get involved with the designer, the designer is Practice Theory, who did the design of this entire book. So they already have a page plan. But looking at the page plan and according to the paper is also very difficult. So I suggest that we have to make a mock-up to identify what are the problems we face, or are there any limitation that comes in terms of putting the book together. So as you can see, this is a page plan given by the designer. So when I look at the page plan, I'm not too sure at that moment when I received this, I know that it can be done, but then there is some challenging because the designer specifically wanted the certain paper to be in certain sequence. So that can be very, very difficult and challenging as a printer. So I have to make a mock-up for that. So we have to go to talk about the next one. So we have to, based on the specification, we went ahead to do a mock-up. So in terms of the mock-up, the designer wanted the tip in to be shorter and smaller. So when we do the mock-up, initially when I read the specification, I wanted when I look at the specification, the tip in actually has to be pasted. But then when I did the mock-up, pasting the tip in actually aesthetically, not very nice, and then there's also challenges in terms of binding, and the designer wanted the book to be thread sewn and not as a glue on, because if we want a simplified method, actually we can do a PR binding, which you have different paper, different sizes. That's not an issue. Later you'll know that this book is OTA binding. The spine is open wide, and the cover of the book is not attached to the book. That makes it very, very difficult. So it has to be sewn. So if it has been sewn, so we have to follow very closely to how we want to sew the book, and then it can be challenging as well. So the next one, we see, so after going through, the designer told us that, okay, I wanted the tip-in to be sewn and not glued on. So after discussion, we have to suggest that then we have to increase the height of the tip-in so that then we can actually sew into the book, all right? So after that, the next one, okay, this one can be a bit technical. Actually, typically, right, for a book that you see, when we sew book in 16-page signature, okay, some of you might know, some of you don't know. So a book has to be, that means we have to gather a book in 16 pages. But with the 3 different type of paper used, it's impossible to get 16 pages together. So we have to discuss with the designer, and then unfortunately, then we have to abort the automation of the entire book. So we have to go into manual assembly. So we have to assemble 8 pages by 8 pages by 8 pages. So the tip-in is overlaid over the. So with that in mind, then the designer have to decide how they want to flow the text, which is also can be quite challenging because you have to make sure the content go into the 8 by 8 by 8. So as a designer, some of you might know that some of the content might not fit into the equation, right? But in order for this book to be produced accordingly, then the designer will have to plan accordingly as well in terms of their text, in terms of the detail, the context of the book. All right, the next one. So of course, with this book, we have gone through various mock-up to identify what's the problem and what are the challenges. And along the way, the designer would have to adjust their design accordingly. All right, the next one. And of course, we have done a few, from the color proof to the untrimmed book block. Okay, next one. Of course, the designer have very specific way that they want to bind the book, want to tape the book because it's an OTA bind. All right, so this book is a very unique binding method. Next one. Okay, and then because this book is 400 word pages, OTA bind, right? Because it's a paperback. So you must make sure that the book, when it's opened up, the spine is able to withstand the weight of the book. So that's why the mock-up, the whole process is very important for us. So eventually we make sure that's why the gluing of the spine, we identify where should we glue so that when we open up the book, it's able to hold the weight and is able to open nicely. Okay, next one. Yeah, so these are the various checks that we have to do before we actually go into actual production. Next one. Okay, so the designer also have, once the technicality of the book production has been done, then we have to go into the color specification of the book. So then the next one. The next one again, so these are the binding methods. So, okay, once we solve the technicality, then the designer have to decide what pink, what shade, what font size to use for the book. So we have to go through a series of test print and then to identify, then because this is what the designer want, because they see when you see a digital proof or when you see the design on your computer, it's very, very different when it's actually ink on paper. So the designer wanted to see what's the actual result that they wanted to achieve. So we have to go through a series of wet proofing on the actual press to get the colors that they wanted. All right, the next one. Okay, and then these are the various fonts and the color shades of the pink that they wanted. So these are the tests. Yeah. And of course, the very difficult ones is that the very challenging one is very interesting. If later you take a look at the book, I must really encourage you to buy one because the title of the book is not on the book. The title of the book is on the shrink wrap. So we have to print the book, shrink wrap, and then the title is printed on the shrink wrap. All right, so that is a difficult one. And to make it more difficult, it's even more difficult, right, when the designer tells us that the alignment, okay, this book and the whole entire book, there's no title, but there's a lot of text embossed on the cover. But the more challenging one is that the designer told us that the title of the book must, when we do the shrink wrap, must align with the text behind the text embossed. So that was a crazy one. Yeah, so we have to, these are the effort that we have to go through to make sure that the alignment is printed very precisely onto the shrink wrap, right? And then, you know, when we shrink wrap, right, it's not perfect because the machine, the UV machine that we have, right, you need to print on a very, very flat surface. So in the end, you know what, how we solve it? We have to use a heat gun to make sure that the shrink wrap is entirely flat onto the book before we actually print the title on the book. So these are the challenges we face when we produce. When we have a specific request from the designer, and then this is the process we have to make sure we have to try and error to get it done according to what the designer wants. Yep, that's all I have to share.
Thank you so much. Okay, so that was a bit of a sheepish look, like, wow, the trouble we caused, right? But to be honest, the publisher, right, we also have to balance the different needs of the different parties. So that's my job. So when Manuel came with his team, it's a big team, 2 photographers, 4 contributing writers, she's the main one, and there's of course Isabella, who's the co-author, practice theory, and they really try to push the boundaries of design. And the project is actually on my table. Hey, KG, you don't have to do the content. We are going to handle that. Help us to market the book. Then I'm thinking, okay, this book is going to cost a bomb. And I don't even know if it's possible to make the book. So, because they have a lot of ideas. So really, just now I mentioned we can talk about business. To me, business is about making possible what you want ideally. So you better make sure the practicalities are there. So when Merlyn came in and told me all the tricky parts to the production, the book changed. From a hardcover, it became a paperback. Because, come on guys, 400 over pages and hardcover, nobody will bring it out of Singapore, seriously. And we are saying that, oh, maybe visitors may want to bring the book home. Maybe not, because I don't have space in my luggage and people are flying budget sometimes. So that's why it changed. And I think my role in this project was really to make possible the ideas without going too far away from the ideal. And to me, that is also very humbling because we have to confront the fact that certain logistics, right? Like Merlyn was telling me, you spend one day preparing 20 books or something because they are using the gums and trying to get the shrink wrap aligned, right? Then I say, okay, Merlyn, I think that's not going to work, man, because we have 500 copies, right? So we're not going to spend 50 days doing that. I don't think anyone can survive as a business doing that kind of thing. But the outcome of the book we can be proud of because we really try to push the limit. So I hope Manuel later can also say, oh, you know, concept to the production, how far is it from what you wanted, you see? So I'm also going to learn about what he thinks, right? So the book is unique for me because also the marketing and the pricing is decided at the point of the presentation. I can't change some of the things. The production entailed this, and even at the selling price now, we are not making back. We are just covering some of the costs because he also had to bring in a team of 8 persons. His own time not included. Authors know that you are not paid for writing fully, right? So I'm sorry for that, but it's worldwide. It's not just Singaporeans, but certain authors can make a living, so we must get there, right? So the price point, and when I think of the price point, then I have to think of how to reach out to the right people. So in this group, some of you will not find it sensible to buy the book, and I accept that. But you come here also for this craft talk, for this appreciation, so you get a sense of what we are doing. That's fine. So maybe this is the part when I also start to shift the focus to Manuel, and we start to talk about the design. Manuel, the design of the book, right? I know practice theory also took lead in this. So maybe you can tell us a bit about how the format of the book evolved. Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I know now why practice theory are here today, because I think they will have, those guys will kill them for sure, go without damage. But I cannot talk about, I can talk about the design, of course, because I follow this from the beginning. But the design belong to practice and theory, definitely. I was looking at the beginning to have someone to handle this design and the directions, because even if I'm an architect, I'm not a book designer. I'm not a graphic designer. I mean, I can do very bad things actually on that. So I say I need someone to handle that part, and we got with Isabella a lot to do with the content already. So without it, it's very good that someone can handle it. And we look at a few designers actually, and we choose to work with practice and theory because they are the most Swiss designer in Singapore, I think. Most Singaporean Swiss designer that I have met so far. Maybe there are others, but there was common references that helps. And in the early stage,
Manuel, sorry. So how would you define the Swiss sensibility? Yeah.
So they got this kind of sense of abstraction, which is quite high, which in our culture, design culture is clear, and I guess they have that, and they got this very the feel that the consistency from A to Z was important. And you talk about how the ideas come reality, and when you do when you envision the project, and when you realize you need to find this consistency between the ideas and the final product. And I guess they have this sensibility and they can understand it, and that's very important. As an architect, it's the same. It's the same actually. We always look at the small model that we done and the reality. Is that the connection, the spirit of this small model to reality is still there, or we lost something? Oh, you lost always something, but at the end of the day, is that the main scheme are still there?
So this is very interesting, right? Because all of us here, you probably are interested in making things. So Manuel just mentioned from idea to concept, and from concept to a product or a
reality.
Yeah. So maybe you can say a bit about this.
Yeah. And I guess that helps quite a lot. And then the initiator of the book is Isabella. It's not myself. I'm more the one who have curated actually the book with the content and the ideas coming from Isabella about food, places, and people. And I would say practice theory have from the beginning understood the idea behind the research of Isabel about eateries, about those food places in Singapore. They understand very fast that the structure is between the archivist and the planner. Fancy one. So, and the book is about how to make an archive and to have the freedom of the planner. And that's something that go along all the design actually. And you can feel the very structured book, which is more archive-like. And at the same time, there is some freedoms coming up on the book on how the stars appears, how the essay appears in the book, and let's say the sequence of the books goes from the archivist to the planner. And that's a very difficult exercise. As a design director like Randy has, he put that on the table, and I think he was super right on that. But after how to make it happen, and that's super complicated. Especially when, what is the typology of an archive book? Because it's not a food book, it's not a history book, it's not an architecture book, it's not a, I mean, what it is archive. Archive of Singapore eatery between 2020 and 2022. Not very sexy book. An archive of eatery 3 years during COVID. Are you kidding me? So it was super complicated, and they have been able to warp up this idea of having some kind of very structured book, very Swiss book somehow on the making, on the structure, but at the same time to bring this freedom that we try also in the interpretation of what is the map of Singapore, we try to bring. And that's something very conceptual, but at the same time when you have the book in the hand and you go through, you can feel that sense of those ideas.
Yeah, so for me, right, when I work with collaborators, I always look for the unique strengths of our collaborators. And clearly, because Manuel's architectural training, right, allows for him to have a very systematic way of conceptualizing copious amounts of information. So that's very critical. And Isabella, right, she has this very human connection with the people and places. So that's why there's also that sense of her sincerity is there, you can feel it. So that's where we can go to Stephanie, because Stephanie, later we'll come back to you for the concept part as well. Yeah, so Stephanie, you were the main contributing writer, and you had to then give a physical form to the idea through words and language, the tool of your trade. So maybe could you tell us, right, how did you go about thinking about presenting the constellations in the book? Because this book has constellations of places and also architecture, eating places. So yeah, how do you go about giving a voice to this book? Yeah.
So actually, for each constellation, right, Isabel brought me on tours, which is really funny. A Swiss person bringing me around my own home country, and she's the one who's like pointing out, oh, you know, this eatery has been here for like 30 years. They make bread this way. Nobody else does that anymore. And I was fascinated by it. And so from my end, I downloaded all her knowledge. Through those walks, I recorded my own information. And then when I sat down, it wasn't so much about writing the details as opposed to trying to capture the feeling of being in each of these places at this particular time where we're at, you know. So yeah, that was mostly how it was done. But okay, that's for constellation. Then for stars, I think the stars are the little inserts through the book. Each star was appointed a timing. So for example, one of the stars was 7 a.m., Zoo's traditional Chilli. So I would go there in a cab at 7 a.m. and I'll sit down and I'll observe what's happening in the market at 7 a.m. There are people reading newspapers by the road. There are people having breakfast. And it's just these little things that makes it interesting, I think.
What I think she is downplaying is the amount of effort that is so natural, right? Like, I mean, 7 a.m. means you wake up like what time?
Yeah, it was a bit painful to wake up for that particular one. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do feel that what I'm amazed by is that this is a pretty international team. Yeah. And the way that Isabel and Stephanie worked together, right, it felt like they were friends more than, I don't know, when I first got together, I was maybe the second to last. You were the last to join the team. I'm the second to last. And there's already a certain connection that I could feel. And when I interviewed Stephanie, because Nicholas did a video for this book, right? So there was an interview with all the collaborators, and Stephanie was able to represent the book in very similar ways as Isabel. So that there's an alignment going on. So I think from the craft perspective as a writer, maybe in what ways did writing this book feel like other books that you have worked on? Maybe this is a method question. Yeah.
Actually, no, it feels like nothing I've actually worked on. This book is quite unique in a sense whereby I think maybe Isabel and I were very aligned because we have very similar worldviews. Personally, a backstory, my family runs a Teochew porridge restaurant. So appreciating these eateries is almost like a second nature for me. And having a foreigner tell me that they appreciate it makes me love it even more because it's like, I was very touched by it actually. And I appreciated all her sharings and her sentiments. And that it's really not just something that, of course, if I grew up with it, I like it. But the fact that she came here and she enjoyed all of it makes me feel proud of it at the same time. Yeah. So, sorry, I forgot your question.
You answered it, although you forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think now we can go to. Do you want to say?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe I can get. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about tone of the book, and she prepared a little passage to read.
Yeah, because I don't really know how to explain the tone of the book except to read it so you know what it is like. So this is, hang on.
I think you're also wondering, oh, what is this voice that comes from what she described, right? So interesting. Yeah.
I'll find a very short one so I don't bore you.
Does anybody need to leave at 5:30 sharp? Yeah, because there is a printer tour later. I suspect we'll end at 5:30. So, yeah. And then the tour will happen after that.
I'll make it fast. Yeah. Yeah. So the tone is actually like, it's almost like an observer in a city, like when you're walking around and you're making notes. And it was not, we didn't want it to be very prescriptive. It's just quietly noticing these details that we found interesting. So So, okay, with that, I will read a star from this place called Lao Ati Bakute. It's somewhere at Whampoa. Not sure if you guys are familiar with it. So, built in 1972, HDB Block 34 Whampoa West is an iconic curved block with a mishmash of shops, including a Chinese medicine therapy center, a vintage beauty salon, a modern-day bistro, and various local restaurants and eatery. However, some may argue that this 320-meter-long estate is really the territory of a grey tabby cat who often lies lazily by the sidewalk, only getting up to trot towards the self-designated cat provider of the neighborhood at meal times. At the peak of the curved block, red lanterns light up a small coffee shop with a bright yellow signage announcing Lao Ati Bakute. Founded by Mr. Lim Chun Lian, his nickname is Lao Ati, hence the name, in 1965 along River Valley Road. This establishment serves a clear Teochew-style pork broth that is sweet with a light touch of spice from the Sarawak peppercorns and garlic. Apart from the standard Bakute items and traditional tea, the eatery offers fresh fish that is steamed to order, Teochew style, with preserved vegetables, ginger, and tomatoes. The atmosphere is relaxed as the crew casually bicker with one another. Vintage wall and ceiling fans keep the space well ventilated. Together with DIY seafood shots, the walls tell stories of past achievements through sepia-toned photographs, newspaper clippings, and certificates. Prices on the menu board have been stickered over, an inevitable measure in response to rising food costs and inflation. This makeshift mindset extends to hosting a table of 8, a less regular group size, managed by layering a larger tabletop over the original table. Outside, 3 friends chat animatedly over beer and steamed squids as cars speed past the busy Boon Keng Road. Originally breakfast food, Laadi is said to be the first to start selling bakute for dinner. He was certainly onto something, for it makes for a comforting meal at the end of the day. So this is kind of like the style. It's a bit of storytelling, but there's nothing too exciting. It's nothing grandiose, nothing is happening, but I think this is what the book tries to capture. It's the everyday things that makes these places come alive. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I really think you sum it up really well there. Yeah. So maybe back to Manuel. Yeah. So Manuel, how far did we detract from your vision for the book, from the idea to the concept to the making?
Actually, we got ideas, but we don't have a final format, and that's something that from the beginning I told to everyone who's been involved on the book. We don't know what we are doing. So they were a bit afraid, but actually it was the reality. The idea was clear is to document one typology which is very unique for me or who contribute to the streetscape of Singapore, which is those eatery, open to the street, no aircon, family business, basically, through some constellation. Constellation is like 20 to 40 minute walk, promenade, with landmark, which are not the landmark, the usual landmark, but maybe the landmark of the past or the landmark that you don't see, but actually with a lot of interest, actually, and some food shop. And one constellation creates some kind of atmosphere, which is very specific to these places, this area. And Isabella created 28 of those spaces. We got this idea, but after how to make it happen as a final format, and I think this is belong to really the designer, and the fact that potentially also the layering of people that have been involved, because if Isabella is the initiator, after there is of course Stephanie, the writers, then we have two photographers with two different visions. Mindita did all the constellations, some kind of very hard documentation of thousands of pictures, and then we bring Don Wang, who did all the stars with a different paper, different format that give another layer, another perception of what Singapore can like. Because, and then we got all the essayists. We got 3 people involved, one social, one urban, one culinary, to set the context. Because this survey or this study cannot be, I mean, we are nobody. We don't have the legitimacy to start to talk about Singapore. That's for sure. We are Swiss architects, Swiss doctor. It's ridiculous somehow. And we thought that this research start to be relevant if we can set a context. And the context, we cannot make it. I mean, we are not Singaporean. We are, okay, working here for maybe 15 years, but actually we don't have that legitimacy. So we bring people who can set, we give some kind of white blank paper. They can do whatever they want to write. They know the subject. They know what is the field that they need to write on, but that's it. The rest, they can do whatever. So Sarah Ichoka did 5 essays. Adil Jalal did 1 essay, and the Chef Ming did 3 essays. So then you start to dig on the context, and finally, PT also has his own layers somehow.
PT is practice theory.
Practice theory, which bring all this layering by different papers, different transparency, and that bring this new perception or our perception of what Singapore can like. Is not one beautiful image, Singapore. It's much more deep. And I think this book, I've tried through this layering and the deepness and these textures and this atmosphere to give another perception of what can be Singapore. And a lot of people, foreign people tell me about Singapore. It's very boring, it's very artificial. But actually, it's totally wrong. Actually, they just have this beautiful image of what Singapore should or must look like. Actually, Singapore is much more than that. And actually, I guess this one is more like 80 or 85% of Singapore that I know. That the 10% that is commercialized or sent to overseas to entertain Singapore. So I think that was a bit the ideas along. And I will finish with the title and of course the the fact that this book is a white book. So there is no image, there is no title, there is nothing. And that's something we come out with PT on the ideas that the author are not so important, actually, because this one is Singapore. It's part of is a survey about Singapore. So when you open you remove the wrapping paper, the authors and everybody disappear, and just remain the content, the archive of Singapore. And I think this one is something quite interesting on the way that it's something that may be even more interesting in 10 years. And then you need to touch it, you need to go deep to understand. It's not something that is given easy, like a very beautiful glossy paper with a beautiful picture on the top. It's something should go a little bit more deep. So it's 460 pages, so sorry for that. There is a lot, yeah. The title, of course. Actually, the title is Chilli in a pink bowl, of course. But this one is too easy. This is again about what you expect. But actually, we try to give another challenge, the perception of what is the reality. And one evening, talking about this title, I think Brenda was here, Isabella, in one of the eatery, and we were talking about the title, something very banal. But how something very banal become very exciting. And we came out with the ideas that maybe this night, the chili was pink.
Thank you so much, yeah. So I think we should have at least a few questions if you want to have a chance to ask anything. Because the rest of today, right, there will be a print tour, 5 minutes. There will be a closing. Is there still a closing?
I think we do the closing, then we do the tour.
Okay, closing, then the tour, and that's it. And maybe if anybody would like to buy the book and get it signed, Manuel will draw things for you. Okay, so any questions for any part? There's one significant gap today. We didn't have practice theory today. It's not because they are not present. It's just that if we include them, it's not going to be 1 hour. There will be a lot of things to say. But we want to, maybe in future, bring in a design talk also. Yeah, so no worries about that. So any questions for the printer, for the publishing side, for the writing and the concept side? Yeah. So you can also ask about business or craft, yeah, if you are interested in any.
Okay, so I got a couple of questions. One, altogether, how long did it take to make this entire book from start to finish, and how did you plan out the timeline of creation for this whole thing?
The book is 3.5 to 4 years. We are not rushed. Relax.
I think we are good already. Maybe, no questions, right? Okay. So maybe the closing and we can do the tour already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Kah Gay. We really appreciate this opportunity. I was sharing with Emmanuel just now when he came in. Because we print a lot of books for galleries and museums, and we're often being invited to their openings. And we are not so artistic, we are not arty trained. So there was once I went to one art piece, I thought, hey, this one quite easy. Just draw the line art, read through a plotter, 5 minutes I can complete. Why is it selling at 5 figures? Until the artist explained why. He actually is a blank piece of paper, without outlining it, he used a scissor and he started cutting. Okay, he cut without outline. He just go along with it. So that explained, initially I thought it's just a 5 minutes work for a printer, throw to a plotter and it's all done. And I can sell it at 50 cents, but he's selling at 50,000. So that's a big difference. So to me, it's also, so it came out to the concept, we print a lot of books, but a lot of people don't really understand the pain, the trouble, the creativity behind. So I was hoping that one day we can actually have an event like this, that we get we open up and have the opportunity to share the thinking behind. So I actually told this to the team, and they were just kind of, are you sure or not, boss? Who wants to come to a printer? And which publisher would like to partner with a printer? You are just a manufacturing company. Finish, go, and they sell. So we just say, why don't we just give it a try? And we really appreciate that Kah Gay gave the trust to us. When we actually toyed this idea with him, he said, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. So I think, we really appreciate the trust from our friends here, Manuel, Stephanie, and Kah Gay. And I hope that this will not be the last. We hope to do a lot of this, and we really want to encourage more people getting into writing or self-publication. And because this is not sunset, this is a sunrise industry.